It's time for the Maximum PC No BS podcast, episode 238 for the week of April 16th, 2015. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things, including GTA 5. It's finally out on PC. We're going to be talking about the systems that we use at home. Apple Watch, because I'm guessing you guys want to hear our take on that. And then Tom also has an announcement for you guys. So all of that and more is coming up right now. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Jimmy Thing, and joining me are tech editor Tom McNamara.
Hello.
Editor-in-chief Tuan Nguyen.
Hello.
And associate editor Alex Campbell.
Hey there.
And just jumping right into it, our first topic is, GTA 5. It finally came out on PC.
After a long time.
Yeah, I think it first came out on the consoles, Xbox 360 and PS3 in 2013.
Yeah, September 2013.
Okay. Are you guys interested in getting it? Have you guys played it at all?
I played the original PS3 version, didn't finish it. I just messed around with it for a little while.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed it. It's the first GTA that I've gotten into.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't get into I feel like it was trying to do too much and it was shallow at everythve, but I feel like GTA 5 it's actually
The last GTA I really got into was Vice City, so that's how long ago I played GTA, but
Yeah.
I've spent a bunch of money on Steam on Wolfenstein: The New Order and getting the Arma 3-pack. So another $60. Okay, well I'll do it because the artwork really looks good, especially after watching us test it out in 4K the other day. It was actually really, really impressive. So that caught my eye.
Well, and I live in GTA, the real GTA. I live in LA actually.
Yeah.
So have you played GTA 5?
No, I want to because I want to compare.
Yeah, so it was interesting because
what bugs me is that I think about 6 months after the release on PS3 and 360, they said, "Oh, by the way, we're working on the next gen version," and I was like, "You were doing that the whole time, weren't you?"
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And so that's why when it came out on the next gen consoles. I waited till it was on sale before I bought it on the Xbox One because I was like, I know it's a much better version. I can see that, but I don't want to rebuy it. So I'm kind of holding off on the PC version because I really don't want to buy it a third time.
Yeah, Tom hates me for this. Maybe I shouldn't even be saying this on the air, but I fortunately for me, I don't have to purchase games on PC.
It's one of those Valve Press accounts, which I've never been able to obtain. It's okay though.
It's great working here though because I can just fire up a game and benchmark it, and I did that for GTA 5. We did it running 3 Titan X's using a system that Origin PC provided us. I'm going to be reviewing that system soon. The game is quite taxing at 4K and when you max everything out.
Yeah.
I was seeing about 40 frames per second with 3 Titans.
That was indoors though, wasn't it?
No, it was just I played one mission and I used Fraps to capture the the frame log.
3 Titan X's with all settings maxed out.
Yes,
at
4K. And I got about 40.
That's including the NA-aliasing you probably don't really need at that point.
That's what I'm saying.
And a lot of readers are like, why did you turn up AA? It's the point is just to crank everything up and just to see what 3 Titans
what's the worst case scenario.
Exactly. You guys saw me playing it. What did you guys think of how it looked? So frame rate was a little choppy at around 40. Right. It's playable.
You saw a little bit of tearing here and there also.
Yeah, because VSync was turned off
VSync
just for capturing the frames.
Did the display we use, did it have G-Sync?
No.
You could have used mine. Mine's a 4K G-Sync.
Next time, bring it in.
Right.
Well, no, it's sitting on my desk.
He borrowed it.
Oh, okay. Regardless, Tom, you have played the Xbox One version, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it look better than that? Because I've only seen the PS3 version myself.
I think it looks better. There's some detail. I would have to compare stuff side by side. I did notice that there seemed to be God rays in the introductory section where the heist goes wrong and you come outside and there's that snowy area and it's your first gunfight in the game. And I didn't notice the God rays, the little sunlight rays coming around.
Yeah, piercing around the trees and
right,
stuff like that.
That sort of thing. I didn't notice that effect on the Xbox One or or the the PS4 versions,
Yeah.
let alone the PS3 or 360 versions.
To me, like I noticed, like not having really played the Xbox One or PS4 version, the textures looked a lot sharper, and that's a problem that I encountered with the PS3 version.
I mean,
It's
they probably are. It's like a 65 gigabyte thing on your hard drive once
it's
it's
a huge
installed.
install size.
And I think they also added more music stations, so that there is more content in the PC version. They're not just saying here it is.
Yeah. The shadows also look a lot better as well. There's like advanced shadow options.
That's
and
cool. Yeah, I've heard that there are a lot of performance tweaks that you can do, and that there's a lot of settings for the PC version that you can fine tune. So that's nice.
Yeah. So I mean, it is. So like going back to GTA 4 on PC, that was a horrible port. It was very resource intensive.
Yeah, from what I understand, the people who ported GTA 5 to the PC are the same guys who did
Max
Payne
right?
3.
Right.
Yeah, which performed really well on the PC, despite looking like it should be pretty demanding.
And I think it hasn't been out long enough for them to tweak and optimize the game based on like actual real usage data.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure the guys over at AMD and NVIDIA are going to work on like really, really optimized drivers, and I'm sure Rockstar will do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some collaboration there because it's such a huge title.
So like at home, I'm playing it with with on a 1080p screen with a single Titan X, and and it runs well. So to address some people who might have questions about how well it's optimized for PC in general, I think at the high end, like when you have to crank everything up, it's not. I mean, there's room for improvement. But if you wanted to have a playable experience at 1080p with a mid-range graphics card, this is not a GTA 4 situation.
Yeah, one of the guys at Rockstar claimed that you could play it at 4K at around 30 frames per second with a 7870 Radeon R9 7870, Radeon HD 7870. Which is roughly equivalent to a Radeon R9 270 or 270X in performance.
In performance, like is that the graphics set?
Yeah.
Okay.
In performance.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather opt for lower res and higher fidelity.
Yeah.
It's 4K at like low or whatever. That just doesn't jive with me. It's kind of weird.
I'd rather do 1080p or 2560.
Yeah. So, anyways, GTA 5 on PC so far, I'm digging it. I think it's a fairly good port. Moving on to our next topic, Alex, you're going to be, you're a big, as we've said before, you're a big Linux guy.
Open source in general.
Open source guy, and you're going to be writing a new open source column, right?
Yeah, so I'm writing the first column right now, and
not right this second.
Not right this second in the room, but I've been working on it the past couple of days, and I was tossing around some ideas with Tuan and some other people about what it should be about. The first article for the column. And I think that tackling the chicken or the egg problem that Linux seems to have is really important because, you don't have a whole lot of people switching over to the operating system because you're missing a lot of key software that people use. You don't have things like AutoCAD. You don't have the Adobe Suite. You don't have nearly as many games. I mean, you've got I checked, there's over 1,000 games on Steam. That are available to play on Linux. Some of them are really, nice titles. But at the same time, you don't see GTA 5 available on Linux.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot better than it used to be like maybe 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Steam has done amazing things for Linux gaming. I mean, back before Steam, it was tough to find games on Linux. It was pretty much you ran Linux because you were an enthusiast and because you were a geek.
Or a masochist.
Or a masochist, yeah, because you really hated yourself and you wanted to, futz around with drivers all day, without an internet connection.
Yeah.
So, the column's focusing also on, what we can do as, people in the open source community, how we can get people to switch to Linux, how we can get people to try it out and make sure that it's going to be a positive experience. So getting like a live distribution of Ubuntu on a stick and, showing people, hey, this is your experience. If you're just, emailing, surfing the web, making a few documents, there's no reason that you should have to shell out $100 for Windows, especially if you don't want it. A lot of people are up in arms about Windows 8. I know my parents especially hate Windows 8, don't like the fact that they have to upgrade because XP support's ending. So this is a prime time where they'll be like, well, try out Ubuntu. It may work for you. You know, and if it doesn't work for you, fine, but you can at least try it, and it won't cost you anything to try it.
I wonder if that's one of the reasons why Microsoft has decided to give away Windows 10 for 1 year, because of the reluctance that people have to upgrade to Windows 8 from XP.
Yeah. And, I mean, Ubuntu's been growing a lot. You may not see it so much in the States, but you see it especially in international markets. It's internationalized really well. The fact that it's open source and, you know, free as in speech and free in, well, not completely free as in speech, but free as in beer, you know, so you can download it, the desktop version as a end user and use it without paying for it. That's got a really big appeal for people who just need to run it in a classroom, who just need to surf the web, you know, do basic stuff.
Do you feel like Chromebooks kind of like infringe upon that a little bit?
I think Chromebooks are kind of a half measure, because you're basically running, in a sense, the way I see it, you're kind of running Chromium over top of the Linux kernel without the rest of the desktop environment. So in that sense, yeah, Chrome's done a lot of things to to expand the acceptance of Linux or other operating systems for at least the laptop platform.
Yeah, but probably Android has as well.
Yeah, Android has done a lot
They're
of
all
things.
Linux-based.
Yeah, they're all Linux-based, so they're all using the Linux kernel, which, by the way, was just released yesterday, a new version 4.0. I was reading a post by Linus Torvalds, and it's basically a minor release, and he just opted because I guess he took a poll, and people just like bigger version numbers because they're done with, having, 3.19. Whatever. And then having all these minor releases. So it's just like, okay, it's just going to be 4.0. This is what 4.0 is going to look like. And it's a minor release, which is kind of weird, but it's, the minor release, the naming convention for minor releases is really more developer based, and it doesn't really help the end user figure out what is in each version. So.
Right. And that's also one of the charming things about Linux is that I couldn't imagine a Fortune 500 company like taking a informal poll on the next version number for its programming stuff, and like the next day saying, all right, this is version 4.0 now, guys.
Yeah.
But when you're Linus, you can just take a poll and say, all right, this is what, sort of semi-democratic thing. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And you feel like Linux has gone a tremendously long way to solve a lot of the stigmas that, held it back from being mass adopted?
I think for a lot of applications, yes, it has. I mean, I was looking into, I have a roommate who needs things to do video editing because he's a film major, and I looked in and I'm like, oh, well, there's this program called Lightworks. It's not open source. It's proprietary. You have to pay for it, but you can run it on Linux. You don't have to pay for Windows to use it. You don't have to pay for a Mac to use it. And major Hollywood films have used this piece of software to edit their movies. And the fact that you're seeing these professional tools coming out that are on the desktop user space, not just the server space, is really nice.
Yeah. And you can get versions of Linux that are digital audio workstations right out of the box.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also pretty cool.
Yeah, they package it as almost like an appliance.
Mm-hmm.
That build is specifically dedicated to like a certain or a number of different certain tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
What was your first experience with Linux?
I first
What
tried
was
to.
it?
Oh man, it was back, I think in the late '90s, maybe 2000, and I tried to install Slackware on like an old like Gateway PC I had, like desktop, and Slackware is really not the distribution you want to ever start with.
Yeah.
Because it's really highly configurable. I mean, and this is back in the day. I mean, now we've got systemd instead of init scripts. So init scripts are these little scripts that for each stage in the boot process, they start different programs, and you can tell it what to do. Systemd has simplifies that and have simplified that for the end user, but for people who want to customize stuff, it's a little more complex, and you have to play with this binary system instead of a simple text script. But editing scripts for someone who's coming from Windows, has never looked at a script before, was really challenging. And of course, back then, drivers were a big issue. Trying to get your display to work, trying to get your networking to work. Because if one of the big problems with Linux is if you're not online when you install it, you have a lot of issues, because if you need a driver, you have to find the driver somewhere else, put it on some other media, then you have to mount that media, and if you don't know how to mount media, that presents a problem. So you have to go look it up in the manual, but you don't have an online manual because you're not online. So
you gotta go to your Windows PC to do all that stuff.
I had a printed out install guide that was like a stack of some 20 pages or something that I was using back then. So yeah.
So why are you still a Linux user again?
It got easier. I mean,
it did get easier.
Even at the time, there were some more approachable options like Mandrake, now known as Mandriva, and then I think later on Fedora came along, but I was using Mandrake and it actually wasn't that difficult of an install experience. It wasn't that much different from installing Windows. The issue I had with it was once I'd gotten it installed and I'd figured out how to install like a browser and a word processor, I was like, now what? what am I getting here that I'm not getting from Windows? And of course, the answers, and one of them is like you get more security. You don't have to worry about viruses nearly as much. If you have to worry about them, it's because you might accidentally transfer them from your computer to a Windows user. It's not really going to affect you.
Yeah.
Things like that.
It's like you're being a carrier. You're not really affected by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Asymptomatic carrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Steam Machine initiative? Do you think that's going to be successful?
I think Steam Machines would be a great leap for Linux, but not necessarily desktop Linux, because the thing about SteamOS, the thing about Android, the thing about Chrome is that it is running Linux, but the fact that it's running Linux is completely invisible to the end user. Like if you say, "Oh, why don't you try it Linux?" People who have an Android phone will look at you cross-eyed and be like, "What's Linux?" Like, well, you're using it on your phone. You don't know you are, but you are.
Yeah.
So in that effect, you would see a larger install base for Linux. And actually, one of the things I wanted to touch on the column is that Steam and people who play games on Linux, if you're opening up Steam from the Linux side, Valve's probably taking that statistic, using that user agent and saying, "Oh, this person's running Linux." And then developers can see that data. They can see how many users are installing their stuff. They can see sales and things like that and see what platform that is on. If they see the Linux numbers start to jump, more and more people will look at other products and they'll say, "Oh, they're making a lot of money on the Linux platform. Maybe we should, port our game. Maybe we should, maybe we as Rockstar should port GTA 5 over to Linux and see how well that does." And now they have to do a cost-benefit analysis and figure out, well, how much is it going to cost to actually do the port versus how much money we actually stand to make. And that's the other part of my column I was going to talk about. So,
gotcha.
Cool.
All right, our next topic, Tuan, you wanted to talk about all of our systems, like the builds that we use at home.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and start?
I think there were a lot of questions from readers, and everybody commented in and started talking about their builds. But I just wanted, I guess, a forum for everybody to expand on how they use their personal systems and the pros and cons of having certain specific hardware configurations, without making anybody feel bad. You want to start?
Yeah. Should I talk about my components that I use? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
I like your application.
To go down the laundry list. For CPU at home, I'm running a 3770K, running Hyper 212 CPU cooler. Like I said before, running a Titan X, or sorry, not regular Titan. 16 gigs of RAM, 840 Pro SSD. I have a 4 terabyte hard drive for mass storage. Running a sound card, Soundblaster Z, and I'm running it all on a Fractal Design Define R4 case in white, which I think looks clean and nice. I mostly do video editing, occasionally photo editing, gaming, and then word processing and web browsing and things like that. It's usually what I use my PC for.
How much of your computer time is spent playing games, would you say? Compared
I
to
would say
others?
not as much as I'd like nowadays. I just as I'm getting older, I don't have as much time. But I try to game on the weekends with my friends or something online.
What do you play mostly?
Well, right now I'm playing GTA 5. So yeah, probably that at the moment. Yeah.
Cool.
Can you do co-op in the campaign, or can only do co-op on GTA Online?
I haven't touched the online portion yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't say, unfortunately.
Because that'd be cool. I always like doing
I think
campaign co-op.
I think it's still separate. Like I don't think you can play co-op campaign. I think it's just the campaign, and then there's like online.
Okay.
So I think it's the same thing with the consoles.
All right.
So what about you guys? You want to go next one?
Yeah. So my primary system at home, as I wrote, was it's a Sandy Bridge. So, it's a little bit behind the curve in technology, but it still works really well. 3970X Extreme Edition. So it's quite actually it's still a really good CPU today, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Motherboards and Asus Rampage 4 Black Edition. I have a GTX 980 in there. Some Samsung extremely low profile DDR3 that don't require any RAM sinks at all. I have 2 Samsung 850 Pro SSDs, one for the OS and one for the user directory. Don't ask me which OS I'm using. 4 Western Digital 4 terabyte blacks.
4 of them, jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have 4 Western Digital 2 terabyte blacks too, on the side, for backups and archiving. I guess I should go with reds.
You also have like a crazy fast internet too to take advantage of all that stuff. Right?
Yeah. So my internet connection is a synchronous fiber 500 megabits down and up. And sometimes when I'm downloading stuff, the hard drive, depending on how filled it is, because when it's like at the beginning, it'll write faster than like at the end.
Yeah,
The hard drive can't actually keep up with the downloads, so it'll get like backed up in queue for writing. It'll save to RAM, and then like it'll start chugging.
So your hard drive cache is probably just
Like,
not
just-
too.
I've wondered about that
too
sometimes.
shallow.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. It's kind of interesting.
But
So
you're that's at home, right? You're not getting that. Just for the listeners and viewers who are like, where can I get that kind of speed in the Bay Area? It's like, well, it's
well,
not-
I heard
start-
Google Fiber is coming to Cupertino.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then AT&T announced their 2 gigabit fiber initiative because Google Fiber.
And I think Sonic.net has been doing some fiber stuff. I don't know if they're doing that residentially anymore though.
It's interesting that AT&T is doing that because their DSL has been so woefully bad.
Yeah.
It's like I still get advertisements. It's like we have 6 megabit per second. I'm like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Why would I do that?
If Google Fiber announces that it's going to come to your town, you might get a bunch of people from your local cable company and from your phone company saying, hey, you should sign up with us because we're about to do this big old fiber deal. And you have to be careful with the fine print because a lot of times they want to lock you into a multi-year contract so as to prevent Google Fiber from penetrating very much in that market.
Yeah.
So read the fine print when those offers come around.
Yeah. So I got, just to finish off the rest of the system, I have a 30-inch Dell Ultra Sharp. It's not the latest one, but it's the U3011. Everything's backed up by APC power, uninterruptible power supplies.
Very good to have one of those.
Yeah,
So I have 3 of them at home.
yeah, something I want.
One for
Right
the
next to each
gaming
other.
system,
Right.
one for just the networking equipment like the router and everything like that, and then one for the desktop.
Are you gonna get a maybe one day? Are you gonna try to get like a Tesla battery when they actually have home batteries?
What
one
actually
day?
happened was
That'd be cool.
when I was actually playing World of Warcraft still way back when, I had a blackout in my community, and I was still in the raid because everything had gone down, but my network was still up, and so was my PC. And I said into the guild chat, "Hey, I have a blackout," and people were like, "How come you're still like in the raid?" Well, because yeah.
UPS, yeah.
The one distinct feature I would say about the system is something called a magneto optical drive, which I use to archive like very, very important stuff to me that I don't want degraded or whatever. They're not very common. They're used in like medical grade kind of like or military type situations where the magneto optical media requires both a laser and magnetics to actually write the data. So it can't be influenced by just magnets, and it can't be influenced by like UV or laser individually. You need both. So the laser heats up the medium to like a curing point, which is where the magnets come in and rearrange the molecules, and then when it cools down, it just completely locks into place.
So basically, the medium gets cooked.
Yeah, and it's
That's awesome.
rewritable, so it's just slow.
That's cool.
They're expensive too. Each diskette that's 1.3 gigabytes is like $30.
Jeez.
Wow.
Jesus.
Yeah, but this is really
So
expensive.
text files only.
Yeah.
Maybe the occasional MP3.
Yep. And it's all wrapped up in an NZXT H440 case. So.
That's cool.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm using a system similar to Jimmy's, a 3770K, 16 gigs of RAM. I'm using a GTX 980. You guys might have noticed that that's 3 of us now that are using NVIDIA cards, but it's because we just tend to get more of those than AMD cards around in the office, and so
That's where the cards have to go. No, I'm just
we practically just get them like uninvited, unsolicited. So we're like, all right, we have like 6 of these now. You want to use one for a little while? Okay. So that's how that works. So I have a GTX 980 in there as well. Multiple SSDs and hard drives. I honestly can't remember the exact setup off the top of my head because I change it around periodically. But I have I have like a 0.5 terabyte 840 Evo, and I think I have maybe 2 of those, and maybe 2. Then I have a 4 terabyte hard drive, and I think I also have a 3 terabyte hard drive. Can't quite make up my mind. And then that's all inside Fractal Design Define XL2, which is kind of like
a bigger version of the R4.
Yeah, it's like basically the full tower version of the Define R4. I like having the room to operate inside of a case that size, but I think I would prefer a smaller case because I actually don't need one that big.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably gonna get something much smaller next time.
But that's not like a full tower, right? How many slots?
Expansion.
Slots?
I think it has the usual complement.
Oh, okay.
It's.
But would you class it as a mid tower?
I'd have to measure it.
Okay.
I think you could call it like a tall mid tower.
Oh, I see.
I don't think there's an official spec for what qualifies as a.
From my chassis experience, the definitions are defined by how many rear expansion slots you have.
I'd have to count them.
So
Interesting. Alex?
Okay, so I've actually got like 3 boxes at home. So I've got my old server, which has got all my really old hardware that's got that runs on an old Phenom, AMD Phenom 2. It was an X2, but it unlocks to an X4. It's like, that's part of the reason I got it. It was like I can't remember the nomenclature, something X55, like Black Edition or
Probably
something.
Probably an X2 550 be my guess. Yeah.
So, and I've got about like 8 gigs of RAM running in that, and that just runs a file server. So that's running on Arch Linux. It's got two terabyte Seagate Barracudas, and it's got a 3 terabyte Seagate Barracuda. So the 3 terabyte is for like my for the NAS storage, and the 2 terabytes are photo backup. So it's because I do a lot of photography. So it's a photo backup and then a photo archive and then a backup of the archive, and then I use rsync to synchronize them once a day. So, and I always tell people, why don't you put it in RAID? Because RAID's not a backup. This way you actually have a backup. So if you put something on the server and it messes up, you can just pull that other drive and you have a version that is untouched. And those 2 drives actually have front, and the front 5 1/4 bays on the front of the computer actually have, openable bays, so I can just front load my hard drives, which is actually really cool.
Cool.
My other box is it's an FX. I think it's not FX. It's like an A5700 AMD
APU.
processor. Yeah, APU, and my video card in there is like a NVIDIA GeForce 550 Ti, which is an older card, but I built that computer for photo editing. So that dual boots Windows 8, Arch Linux again. And it does what it needs to do. I think it's got 16 gigs of RAM. So I opted for RAM and storage in both of these machines because there's a lot of image processing, a lot of raw files, which are really, really heavy on storage. Both of the OSs on both of them run on SSDs. The server's got has a SanDisk in it, and then the newer one has a Kingston HyperX on it. And then the third box is one that I built here and that I took home is the I could put a Devil's Canyon in it.
4790.
Yep. and I put I think a 760, one of the old 760s that were lying around. Put threw that in there, and I've actually been playing some games. I played through Wolfenstein on it.
Purely for testing purposes.
Purely for testing purposes, and actually like somehow finagle a 4K screen. So I took that home and actually was able to get it to play, but it wasn't really playable.
It's a little bit of a mismatch.
It was totally a mismatch. I'm like, well, I'll see what we can do, and it was not really smooth or playable. So once you bump it down to like 1440 or use the recommended settings, it worked fine. It still looks great. And that machine's running Windows 8.1. So
you actually kind of cheated a little bit because you talked about 3 systems.
Yeah, exactly. I talked about 3 systems.
How many like, I actually have a couple rigs. I think I have like 4 rigs at home myself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to delve into the specs because I don't remember them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
How many computers do you guys have?
Well, I have the desktop, then I have this laptop, then I have...
Like I have a HTPC.
Yeah, I have like 3 or 4 tablets, but half of them I got as gifts. I'm not like a tablet collector or anything. I mainly just use a Nexus 7 and sometimes a Shield tablet as far as tablets go.
I left out my Raspberry Pi, which I haven't set up yet, but I've got one.
Yeah,
Raspberry
like
Pi 2.
I have like a HTPC, my main rig, and then like I have like 4 or something, and I have like one that I just built up. It's in my closet. I'm like not even using it.
Yeah.
It's just it's one of the issues you deal with working on Max PC, I guess.
For me, I have the primary desktop rig. I have an HTPC, which is actually just an Intel NUC.
Those are really handy. The Nooks.
But then now I have like this gaming system actually from Digital Storms, the Bolt 3, that is my Windows gaming PC in the living room attached to a projector. And then I have my Air for purely work and traveling purposes just because it's so light. And then I have an IBM ThinkPad, like a T40, which is like a Core Duo. It's dedicated. It's hooked up to a dedicated UPS, and it's hardwired to my router. So just in case any system like goes down or whatever, and it's got TeamViewer and LogMeIn running on it at all times, I can like get into it and then like control my router.
It's good to have backups.
Yeah, and then I have an Acer Chromebook, and some spare PC in the closet.
Yeah, you could always just install Ubuntu on it and then SSH into that computer.
Oh, which reminds me, I can say which operating system I'm using on my desktop. It is a very highly customized version of BSD.
Ooh, BSD guy.
In
Okay.
essence. You know what I mean?
Sort of.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean now. Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to talk about an Apple product.
Yeah.
Apple is on the verge of releasing their Apple Watch. I believe it's coming out on the 24th of this month. What do you guys think about that?
When I was at PC World, I was working near Greenbot and some other people, and when I was there last year, there was a lot of press and talk about all the Android Wear watches. Sure. So by the time the Apple Watch comes to market, there's already been Android Wear on market for better part, probably half a year or more. So you've had watches around for a while. You've had watches that have heart rate monitoring and things like that. You have I was just talking to you guys earlier about how the Up 4. I saw a video last night, actually, of someone using NFC to buy something with their Up 4, which is a fitness monitor, but it's got NFC built in, so you can use your Google Wallet or whatever with that. So the Apple Watch it looks nice, the interface looks nice, but it to me doesn't really break any new ground. It's kind of combines design, Apple's design people with technologies that's out there, and it doesn't really introduce anything terribly new.
We've seen this similar cycle with they were the iPod, back in 2001, I think, and people were like, well, there's some other MP3 players that they have the features of the iPod, and they cost less, and it's like, in the end of the day, that didn't really matter because it was just such a colossal product. They put like so much marketing muscle behind it, and it was also the industrial design was also really good.
Yeah.
That seems to be the case with the watch as well.
I remember I had a Diamond Rio like 300.
I had that.
Yeah,
that was like the first.
It worked on a AA battery. It was
Yep.
awesome, and it failed actually because this little wire that connected the battery the soldering came loose.
Oh, dear.
So that thing was like, but I loved that thing. I took it to school all the time when I was in high school. It was great.
It barely stored any songs. Really.
Yeah, it stored like.
You had to use that. What was that card that we were using back then for the Rio 300?
Oh,
it
God.
used like this thin like memory card, like
Yeah.
from like for cameras and stuff like that. But it was before the times of SD and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really, really small flash card.
Exactly.
I think the watch will be popular to people who don't already wear something on their wrist. But if you're a watch guy, then it probably won't have as much penetration. But I think people who consider themselves watch guys or watch girls, for that matter, are probably a pretty small percentage of the population at this point because of how cell phones have basically overtaken most, if not all, the functions of a watch.
Right. It's a luxury item.
Well, see, all the watches that have come out up until this point, prior to Apple kind of like revealing that they were working on a watch, I felt the watches were utilities. They weren't like a piece of jewelry. But Apple's took the whole jewelry approach to it. Like you can see it in their commercials and everything. It's very, very like.
Is that the correct approach though? Because it's like you have something that's like upwards of $17,000, and that you're gonna have obsolete jewelry.
So here's the thing. So they're taking the jewelry approach, but in my opinion, jewelry is supposed to be like timeless. But this watch will go like obsolete.
Yeah, every two versions of iOS if your device was made earlier than that, then they don't support it anymore. Right. They cut you loose.
And then next year they're gonna come out with the next Apple Watch. You know.
Right, and it's not the only watch that looks good. We were looking at the Pebble earlier. Tom and I were looking.
The Pebble Steel looks nice.
The Pebble Steel looks really nice.
Is that the circular one?
No, it's a square.
Yeah,
I prefer the circular design.
It has an e-ink display, so it stays on the whole time. Whereas something like I think the Moto 360 is off by default as well.
I think most Android Wear watches are off.
Because they have to,
or they're dim or something.
They have to preserve
power.
Yeah, they have to preserve the battery power. Whereas if you have e-ink like you do with Pebble, it's using very, very minimal power to keep the display alive. So it's on all the time, and you don't need to do that wrist action to activate the gyrometer in your smartwatch to allow you to see the display.
Yeah, on that note too, like I think the biggest drawback of the Apple Watch and other smartwatches is just the battery life. Like I have enough things to charge in my life as it is. I don't need to have to worry about
my bedside table's got like 3 or 4 cables, power cables.
Yeah,
so I can charge different phones, my tablet, my laptop. Like everything's charging. There's a big heap of electronics there. I don't really want to add a phone a watch that I have to do every night.
Yeah,
that's kind of silly.
I think Apple estimated 18 hours between battery charges, but one of the nice things about that device is that you don't have to plug anything in, and it's not just a convenience feature, but it's also when you plug something in and out and in and out all day long over the course of a few years or maybe even a few months, that connector can break down and even just break altogether. So it's nice to be able to do that without having to use a physical connection.
I think all the Android Wear watches are like that too.
Are they?
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Because they have to be waterproof, right? So you can't have
or water resistant. At least
so
splash proof. Because if you're caught in the rain and you have an expensive, $500 smartwatch on, and your smartwatch can't take a few splashes of rain, not a very good watch.
Yeah. Yeah. The Pebble, I think you can actually. They say you can submerge it. I think it has a water resist of like 50 meters.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's actually really deep.
It's actually much better.
55 meters.
50 meters, yeah.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
And I think the Apple Watch doesn't have an official water resistance rating. I think they've cautioned against, submerging it, wearing it.
Scuba diving.
Don't wear it while you're washing dishes, things like that. Don't do it while you're washing the dog. Don't wear it in the shower. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Apple was touting that it has capabilities to do sleep tracking, right?
Well, it has like 4 sensors or something crazy.
So, but if it does sleep tracking and you have to charge it while you're sleeping, how could you ever use that?
Yeah, it's not a realistic, spec for that. I mean, that's where fitness monitors, like your Jawbone ups, where your Fitbits, that's where they really shine, is because they don't use so much power on a screen,
right?
And trying to constantly update with data, with notifications and crap, that you wear it all night. I mean, most fitness trackers you charge once every 4 to 7, maybe 10 days, depending on the brand and the model that you got. You have several days of power rather than 18 hours.
Yeah. That's one of the nice things about the Pebble. Also, I've never actually used one. I'm not like trying to shill it for it or anything, but I have noticed that because of the e-ink thing, it will go for like 5 to 7 days between charges, which is another. But it's also a black and white display, and so a lot of people like the color displays instead, and I respect that too. They're a lot more. In addition to being a lot more colorful, they're also a lot more reactive. There's a refresh delay with e-ink, whether it's a watch or an e-ink reader. It takes a while to navigate.
And it doesn't do apps.
Well, they have actually there is a Pebble App Store, but it's nothing like.
It's not as vibrant as like the Apple App Store or the Android Store will be.
Yeah, it's much smaller. Yeah.
So what about? Do you guys think that there is a lot of room for utility with these things? I think about a year ago, before I got to try on Android Wear, I was a little optimistic about it, and then after I got some review units in, I started playing around with them. I was like, this is kind of a waste of time so far. Like you use it to read emails and notifications, and that's about it. I think the real utility comes into play when you do like the health tracking stuff.
Yeah, I think the health tracking, especially this came out a little while ago on I think it was a marketplace story or something that health insurance companies like Kaiser, like Blue Cross, things like that, they'll actually give you a health monitor if you share your health data with them. So that way they can actually track your health. You can share it with your doctor and all those types of things. So
they also give you a discount, too, don't
they? Yeah,
they'll
give you a discount on your insurance. So there is real utility for wearables in that sense that you can track your activity. You can get coaching that way. Imagine if you have like a gym membership or personal trainer, and you have this activity tracker, and next time you see a personal trainer, they're like, hey, I looked at your data, you're really not working out hard enough, or you're doing, or
yeah, because I need that.
Yeah, or it's like, hey, you're doing great, keep it up, you're doing a great job. It kind of keeps you tracking, and you can also gamify it so you can compete against your friends and things like that. The idea of getting notifications all the time that buzz your wrist and seeing text messages. I mean, when I tweet or I have texts going on in my pocket, I have my work phone and then my personal phone. I already have too many things buzzing. I don't need something buzzing on my wrist that lights up and that draws my attention away from stuff yet more. Yeah, I don't need that any more than I already have it. So I think that the fitness tracking aspect is one real utility thing. The other thing is like what Up's doing with putting the NFC in the wristband, putting it in the tracker so that you can pay that way. And you don't need a shiny interface to use NFC. You just put your wrist there and it's done.
You can use Apple Pay on the Apple Watch,
I mean, you can use. I think the Up 4 it uses currency, I think, which is like Amex's thing, which is weird because Amex doesn't want to get on board with any of the NFC payment things. Which
the reason why so many of these are popping up is because they want to get in on the transaction fees.
Yes,
potentially billions of dollars every year. This is not a consumer assistance mechanism.
But I heard there was some trouble with that, the whole currency program. There's like huge controversy on it.
Yeah, there was a lot of retailers that were getting ready for Apple Pay, for Google Wallet, for PayPal, because PayPal does it too, Amazon Payments. These are all NFC payment processors. And all these retailers stopped taking these NFC payments because they wanted to join Currency, and they were part of this consortium. And we're like, well, until we get our version on the market, we're not going to take them at all. So it's they're kind of gaming the game a little bit. You saw the same thing with ISIS, which is now SoftCard, which was bought by Google Wallet. And I actually went on Twitter and I asked Amex, I'm like, hey, since you don't offer reward, because one of the things is that at least with Amex you can't earn rewards if you use like Google Wallet, or I don't know if you can do it with Apple Pay, but I know you can't with Google Wallet. They won't give you, like if you go shopping you get 6% back or whatever. They won't give you that 6% if you use Google Wallet. But they did if you use SoftCard, which they had a partnership with. So I asked, now since Google Wallet bought SoftCard, am I going to get it? And they're like, we don't know, probably not. And it looks like they're going to Currency. So they're kind of gaming the game. They're like, Amex is kind of like pissing me off because they're not letting me use, my credit card the way I want to.
Yeah.
So that you're going to see a lot of this, this game, like Tom said, they're all trying to like make their own money in their own way, and they want you to do it their way, not the way that's most convenient for you, whether or not you use PayPal or Google Wallet. It seems like the credit card companies really don't care. They want you to use their system rather than, a third-party system.
Their main interest is not to serve you. It's to maximize the transaction fee. So that's how it is. I mean, it's business. I get it. They want to they want to make money.
It's understandable, but it's less. It becomes instantly less convenient when you have like 4 or 5 wallet apps on your phone.
Yeah. So it's like when you go up to the ATM and you want to take cash out, you see like a dozen different logos, because there's all these companies competing for the transaction fees. Even when you're just taking money out of the ATM, if it's a third-party ATM, they want to get in on that. Yeah. So, money,
cool.
It's a bitch.
So moving on to our last big topic before your questions. Tom, I believe you have a big announcement to make, and I think, well, before I say that, I've asked them to be civil about this for this meeting up until now, and they've been pretty good. But the truth is, with Alex being a new hire, Tom and Alex haven't really seen eye to eye, and they actually get into fights quite a bit, to tell you guys the truth.
I'm gonna miss letting the air out of your tires.
And so Tom said he's basically had enough of it. Right?
He's Linus Torvalds fanboy, and I'm pretty much Richard Stallman all the way.
So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, no, I am gonna be leaving Maximum PC in future. My last day is gonna be next Friday, the 24th. I just want to try something different, basically. I've really enjoyed my time here, at Maximum PC in future, and you guys are awesome and everything. Mm-hmm. Gonna miss working here. A lot of stuff about the job that I like. So
how long have you been here now?
My start day was February 4th, 2013.
Wow.
And sometimes I mention that to some people, and they're like, "Really? You remember the very day that you started?" And I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of job that it is. It felt like it feels like a birthday, because it's that much of a change from the kind of stuff that most people were doing before. It's a very unique job.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is there a way people can follow you, like on Twitter or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter, and I'm on the book face and things like that. I can't say specifically where I'm going, because you're not really supposed to use one.
People are going to be like, why didn't you ask him?
It's inappropriate to use one medium to like kind of plug another medium, especially if I'm going to work for a competitor. I'm not supposed to mention them, because then you guys are like, well, you can't like plug your dudes. This is our thing, So I unfortunately have to let you guys find me, instead of me advertising where I'm going.
Do you have a Twitter handle or anything you'd like to share?
It's TOMCNAMARA. It's basically my name, Tom McNamara, but the M and the last letter of my first name is kind of conjoined with the first letter of my last name, so it's kind of like
I have beef with your last name in general, because it's pronounced McNamara, but there's no MAC.
Yeah, it's one of those Irish things. I can't really explain it.
Are you at all related to the Secretary of Defense?
No, not that I know of. If I am, my parents have flatly denied it. They've told me no.
He gets kind of a bad rap, the whole Vietnam thing.
I can't imagine why. Yeah. No relation to McNamara's band either.
Do you have any like parting words for our readers, Tom?
Thanks for all the fish. I've enjoyed talking with you guys and getting emails from you, even when they were full of anger and whatnot. It's been a good community to write for. I think I've enjoyed it. They've kept me on my toes, because they're very technologically aware, and a lot of times they know more about certain things than I do. So it's also an educational process at times.
Yeah, technology is always constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we all learn off of each other. I think that's one thing.
I think one of the key things about technology, especially being in this space where you have so many people who are enthusiasts, is that there's always there's always more to learn. If someone it knows everything there is to know about video cards. Someone else might know more about the Linux kernel, and this guy may not know that.
You're plugging yourself.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that much about the kernel itself, but I'm just giving you an example. I mean, there's things that everyone in the enthusiast community can learn from one another.
Right.
And I think that's one of the core values actually of the community is, teaching each other. It's like, oh, well, you do this or this or this. You should really consider doing this and this and this because, you're going to get more performance or you're going to get more bang for your buck out of this. And that's really one of the cool things about this community. So
yeah. When you're learning about video cards or storage devices or cases, it can be kind of a rabbit hole sometimes, and you have to figure out where are my diminishing returns? At what point am I only learning like 1% more than I did the day before instead of rather like 10, 15%? You have to just cut it off at some point.
Well, Tom, it's been a pleasure working with you so far.
Yeah.
So
Same.
Wish you
sad I didn't get to work with you longer.
Yeah.
You didn't stick around. I must have scared you off.
No, I felt kind of
It
bad.
was all those fist fights in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I felt kind of bad that he comes on, then I leave like a few weeks later.
Yeah.
It sucks.
But,
It's because of you, Alex.
yeah, it's because of me. I don't know. Maybe I smell or something. I don't know.
No, kid. We do appreciate your time here, and we will miss you, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Yeah.
So moving forward, we have some reader questions. From Twitter, Zach N asks, future-proof PC. I built one just after Will left, and it served me well. Is it time for a new build or what? Without him giving us his specs, it's quite hard to say, and it's also.
Is he talking about Will Smith, the former
I think so.
editor-in-chief? Like I don't know what exact year he left. That was before my time here, but.
Yeah, I've been here for 3 years, and that was before my time too.
I would say whether or not it's future-proof depends entirely on the application.
Nothing is future-proof.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing's truly
There's
future-proof. There's
firstly
always
that.
going to be something better, like DDR4 is going to come out, or there's going to be a new socket. So even if you wanted to upgrade your processor, you couldn't get the newest processor because you have an old socket on your motherboard, which means you need a new motherboard. So it's really a matter of what really matters to you. Are you going to try to play the latest games at 4K,
Exactly.
5K?
It's what you're looking for.
You're going to have a way different requirement than, oh, well, I need to be able to do some video editing, some sound editing, maybe CAD drawings. That's going to be a different requirement.
Right.
For reference, he posted his farewell column to the website in January 2010.
Okay, so it's a little over 5 years ago.
Well, I was still in the Marine Corps then, so.
Yeah. So I mean, it really depends on your needs, what you want. I don't know what's inside your system, so yeah, I can't unfortunately answer that.
Yeah, actually, for reference, I did build the processor that I have in my server box. I built most of the components in the box around the same time. So I would say that if you plan on playing games, just knowing how the performance in that box was, it may be time to upgrade. You may not, depending on, you may have to take stock on the socket that you've got, depending if it's a Intel or AMD socket. Figure out what you can upgrade and what your budget is and what your real requirements are. And I think that's really what you should focus on. And what do you want to get out of your machine?
But if you're a heavy game player, I would say you're probably going to be looking at upgrading something.
Yeah.
Once a year.
Yeah, definitely.
Really. So probably.
Well, I think if you're an enthusiast,
Yeah.
like
At least.
If you're an enthusiast level, I mean, you can, the way games are coming out more and more, you're being able to render 4K, you're being able to, do these really intense graphics even at 1080p. Getting a new video card, even if it's not the flagship video card, if it's the step down so that you can get it a little cheaper, that might be a good upgrade.
Yeah, with like CPUs and video cards, at least with CPUs, there's sort of a rule of thumb where you can skip every other generation of an Intel CPU. Like you can go from a 2500K to a 4670K, and that's fine. But if you're doing Ivy Bridge, then you can probably wait for whatever past Haswell, to do Haswell, because it's the very next generation, so the bump is only like 5-10%.
Right. Yeah, with it being at least 5 years since he last built his PC, I'd say it's fair game to build a new PC at this point. Yeah, depending on your needs, of course.
If he's a gamer, then I would say he's definitely due for a video card upgrade.
Yeah. Speaking of video cards, Logan at Logan0 asks, do you expect the R9 390X to surpass even the 980 Ti? Not Titan X, but
neither of which have been released or
Yeah.
officially acknowledged.
Right. Yeah. It's like not even Titan X, but it's 980 Ti even. How do you compare one theoretical card to another unannounced theoretical card?
Yeah, I mean, you have to base the expectations of the Ti on where the 980 is and where the 780 was when the 780 Ti came out.
What about to simplify it a little bit more to remove one of the unknown variables? How do you think it will compare to the Titan X?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's still
Well,
just
it's something that
without an official spec sheet, it's you can't really even.
But Titan X is based on Maxwell.
Yeah.
So we're talking about AMD's totally new architecture here, based on the 300 series. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they should have.
I heard rumors that it might be a rebadge even, so I don't know.
We don't know, but we can safely assume that they usually, since it's such a big change in naming convention for them, I would expect them to introduce a new archicture at this point.
Yeah, that's
because
assuming.
I mean, also with the Titan X, I would expect AMD to have a counterpunch to Nvidia at this point.
They'll likely
So-
release your mainstream volume moving cards, and then that
Right.
flagship card, and then once that flagship card has been out for a couple of months, they'll come up with their equivalent of whatever that crazy card is.
Yeah,
Right.
and they might not even use the 300 series nomenclature. They might just use a different naming scheme altogether. And the 980 Ti might be called something else as well if they come out with the 980 Ti.
Yeah.
So there's and the short answer is that there's too many variables right now.
Yeah,
There's-
we don't know enough.
we don't know enough to be able to answer the
Yeah.
question really.
I mean, we do have Computex in what?
June.
Yeah, in June.
That's the
Yeah.
rumor.
The rumor is
that's
that
the rumor,
we're gonna find out then. So
So
Keep your eyes
you
peeled.
may know before it comes time for holiday buying season. So
Yeah, but the current crop of the 290 series and the 290 and 290X they do really well.
Yeah.
And they have some, actually, speaking of GTA 5, if you're using a Radeon 290 or 290X, there's some special effects that are available to you. I think they're called something to do with shadows. I forgot. Hard contact shadows.
Oh.
Contact hardening shadows is the term, and it gets enabled as an AMD option inside GTA 5, and it makes the shadows appear more realistic.
cool.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So
And we should. I also want to say, if you're still playing at 1080p, and there's nothing wrong with that, the current crop of cards that you can buy in the store right now are perfectly fine for that sort of thing. You can with a 980 or a 970 or a 290 or 290X at 1080p, you can probably just crank everything up and you'll be fine, 60 frames per second.
do you off the top of your head, do you know how much the 295 X2 costs?
I want to say $700.
It
In that-
outperforms a Titan X.
Which costs $1,000. But the trade-off is that with the X2, the 295 X2, you're doing crossfire, and if the game doesn't properly recognize the second GPU, then you're running much slower.
Right, you're
than
running
the Titan
only
X.
one
Yeah.
290X.
And then the 295 X2, it's basically two 290X GPUs in one card. So you're gonna want to have an 850 watt power supply.
Yeah.
And you also need a mounting spot for the 120 millimeter radiator that's integrated into the 295 X2.
So you're gonna need the physical space in the case. To
Yeah,
get it done,
you wouldn't be able to pop that into like one of those shoebox ITX cases. It would probably never fit. So
Moving on, Andy Holmes asks, he's debating between a Samsung SM951 M.2. I've heard that they can run really hot, upwards of 100 C. Thoughts on cooling, or if I should be worried?
I actually haven't gotten the chance to use a wide variety of M.2 storage devices, because for me personally, I've been just fine with the standard 2.5-inch SSDs.
SATA SSDs.
Yeah, I mean, if you really need the extra performance, then PCI Express will hook you up. But I haven't personally needed it, and I haven't been able to justify the jump in cost above even what you'd pay for an SSD versus a mechanical hard drive.
Yeah, I mean, you could even get two cheaper SSDs and throw them in RAID 0, and you can get a lot of performance out of that as well.
Yeah.
So you have to look at. I mean, if there's a big price points difference between doing those two. You know, there's that as well.
Yeah.
Because that'll run plenty cool.
But 100 degrees Celsius, that's really
Yeah,
hot.
that's really hot.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty toasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just what he heard, I guess. I would imagine that Samsung would stress test their thing, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Wrong, actually, if you're running at 100.
No,
I
this
would
is
think so.
what he's saying he heard.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like he's experienced. He's debating on whether or not he should
see.
buy
And
it.
that might be a firmware thing too. That there's probably a bug in firmware
that's reading the
That
wrong
would be
temperature
pretty
out?
unusual to
Yeah.
get a temperature that high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's weird.
So I've had one experience running an M.2 SSD that was with the latest Intel NUC that I reviewed. It was extremely fast. I think sequential write speeds were like 800 megabytes a second or something like that. So it is a lot faster than a traditional 2.5-inch SSD. It did cost a lot, though. I don't remember the retail price off the top of my head, so it is for early adopters and enthusiasts at this point. But it seems like that's going to be, where we're moving in terms of small form factors and like laptops and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
I
was
was just gonna say, of course, for laptop form factors, a lot of laptops now they're also soldering the memory or the non-volatile memories right onto the main board. So
You see that a lot in laptops. Yeah.
so there's that.
So last question. This is just a kind of a fun one. This is from Angry Aaron. He asks, "What summer blockbuster are you guys most excited about?"
Probably the upcoming Avengers movie.
Yeah, it's same for me.
Same.
I think it's really going to tie the room together.
Is Mad Max supposed to come out this summer?
I think so.
Yeah, because that's awesome. Like
Yeah.
that's going to be probably the most awesome summer
You know,
blockbuster. That's going to be the most fun movie you could probably watch.
I haven't actually seen the original Mad Max.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Recommended viewing.
Yes, definitely.
Gotcha.
And, I mean, Tina Turner and Thunderdome is
You got Mad Max, you got Thunderdome, and you got
Thunderdome. I'm not
what's the
familiar
name
with
of
that
it?
one.
There was another one. I can't remember the name of it. You should know this.
I mean, Google big summer movies. This is like a topic that I think Gordon would have gone off of.
Yeah.
Summer
I mean, my vote's definitely on Mad Max.
You're not a big Avenger movie?
Actually, tomorrow I believe Ex Machina is supposed to come out, and that looked interesting too.
Okay. You see anything interesting? Okay.
Road Warrior. That's what Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior, sometimes known as just the Road Warrior.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. Let's see. Let's go ahead and go into closing. So, that about wraps it up. You can check us out online at www.maximumpc.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can email us at maximumpcpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us a message at our 24-hour No BS podcast hotline at 1-877-404-1337, extension 1337. You can subscribe to us on Google Play, iTunes, Kindle, Nook, and Zinio. On behalf of the Maximum PC team, I'm Jimmy Thing, and thank you for listening.